In 1962, a brand new type of store opened in the United States. It was called Kmart, a big box. Now, this differed from the department stores of the day because everything was in one store and an easy layout, and it was cheaper. Kmart invented the big box in the United States, and during the 1960s, it grew steadily. It opened 17 more stores in 1962 for a total of 18, and by the end of the decade, it already had hundreds. 1970s to early 80s was Kmart's dominance. They dominated discount retail in the United States. Several competitors went out of business. And towards the end of the decade, they became the number two retailer in the US. Only Sears was bigger. And they expanded rapidly in the 70s, opening up store number 2000 in 1981. And by the end of 1981, they had 2,055 stores. However, as the 80s dragged on, Kmart started to coast. Instead of continuing to innovate and modernize their stores, they started investing money into other things, other businesses that weren't Kmart. And because of that, over time, competition rose up. In the late 80s, especially Walmart was starting to catch up rapidly towards the end of the decade. And Kmart just didn't do anything to change course. In the 90s to early 2000s, cracks started showing in Kmart. The cracks had formed there in the 80s, but in the 90s they were starting to become more apparent. And in 1990, Walmart surpassed Kmart for number two, and then not long after passed Sears for number one retailer in the United States. And not only that, but other competition was also catching up to Kmart. Target was its other major competitor. And Kmart in the 90s finally started trying to make moves to innovate. They updated their logo, tried to update their stores, but these attempts were half-assed at best. And in 1991, they launched Super Kmart to try to compete with Walmart's supercenters. But once again, execution was lackluster, and they didn't go full in on it. Later in the decade, in 1997, around there, they launched Big Kmart, which was a desperate attempt to try to get people back into the stores, and while it worked temporarily, it wasn't enough to save them ultimately in the end. And in 2002, Kmart filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 11. And while it did emerge from it, at that point it was no longer relevant in the eyes of the public. It wasn't a major retailer anymore at that stage. And in 2004, under new leadership, they merged with Sears. Kmart bought Sears, and that ended up being a horrible mistake. And Kmart only continued to fall behind its competition further. And they still tried things to stay competitive, but the execution was lackluster once again, and they didn't have money at that time to be able to do it fully. And Walmart and Target were just running away with it, especially Walmart. Then by the time 2011 came around, it was all over. After a disastrous holiday season in 2011, closures started ramping up, and as the decade went further on, Kmart started collapsing under its own weight. The logistics was terrible, stores were old, outdated. Stores had not been updated since the 90s, and you could tell by walking in to them. They looked and screamed 90s. They weren't updated whatsoever. And even the ones that had some slight updates, it wasn't a full upgrade. And by 2017, the last Super Kmart at that time was still in normal operations, but there was only one left by 2017. In 2018, Sears Holdings, parent company of Kmart and Sears, filed for bankruptcy, and that meant a lot more closures, including the last Super Kmart in 2018. And for that point, it was just a complete collapse going into 2019, and of course the COVID pandemic didn't help whatsoever. Kmart at this stage was just trying to survive, and its competition had far outpaced it. Now you also have Amazon, not just Walmart and Target, but Amazon and e-commerce also putting them down. And in 2021, the last big Kmart store closed. And as of 2025, they only have a few stores left. One in Miami in the mainland U.S., 3 in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and 1 in Guam. So as of now, Kmart only has a few stores left. It is a shell, a husk of the once dominant retailer in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you want a more in-depth look at Kmart's story and history, I'm going to recommend you two videos. This one by Bright Sun Films, and this one by History in the Dark. You can see them both in the I symbol on the top, or I'll also put them in the description so you can learn more about Kmart's story with both of those videos. Amazon, launched in 1994, was a brand new type of retail. Online, the internet was brand new at this stage, and Amazon saw the future. They saw that you could have a store online. You didn't need a physical store. People can get it online. And so they launched. And they slowly grew during the 90s because, again, the internet was new at the time, so they couldn't quite gain rapid traction. But they were still known at the time. In the 2000s, Amazon survived the dot-com bubble and it started to grow faster, especially as the 2000s wore on. However, they weren't pressuring brick-and-mortar stores quite yet. In the 2010s, Amazon became dominant, especially in the mid to late 2010s. Brick-and-mortar stores were now struggling against e-commerce. So many brick-and-mortar stores were going out of business, and it forced other businesses, brick-and-mortar specifically, to also invest in e-commerce, and mainly Walmart and Target did. They were forced to invest heavily into e-commerce, and even older stores like department stores and other big boxes were forced to invest lots of money into e-commerce to make sure that they don't get ran over by Amazon. In 2020, during the COVID pandemic, Amazon at this stage was at this point coasting because their business at this point had been driven on innovation. However, there's only so much innovation you can do before you hit a ceiling with online stores, and that's what happened here. Now, COVID gave Amazon a huge boost, and for the next couple of years, it gave the impression to a lot of people that brick-and-mortar stores were just done for. That's what people thought. And during COVID, this forced brick-and-mortar stores to invest into omni-channel, which is essentially combining e-commerce, brick-and-mortar, and putting them together. Seamless transition between the online store and the in-person store with a mobile app and everything. Seamless transition. That is what came out of COVID. And while it technically existed beforehand, COVID really bolstered brick-and-mortar stores to implement it. And some implemented it successfully, like Walmart, Best Buy, Home Depot, and others not so much. Target, Macy's, and other department stores. In 2023 to now, cracks have started to form in Amazon's dominance. For years, it had such a tight grip on e-commerce. But as time has gone on, those cracks are starting to form, and they're becoming more and more blatant, especially in this year, 2025. Amazon's dominant position is not secure anymore. Competition is better than it already. Competition has beaten it. You have Walmart with their e-commerce skyrocketing in recent years, and not to mention that Walmart's prices are cheaper than Amazon, and you don't have to pay a subscription for it. So Amazon Prime is losing its value. And other competition as well, like Best Buy is also beating Amazon in terms of speed and convenience. And Amazon is starting to lose customers. It's not a complete collapse, but people are starting to ditch it because Amazon is too expensive and stuff takes too long to get to people's houses now. So Amazon now is in a position where it was dominant and now it isn't. And another blunder of Amazon is they tried to get into physical retail. They tried to launch brick-and-mortar stores, and they completely missed the mark on what you need to do for brick-and-mortar stores. Amazon thought they could just take what they did with their online store and copy and paste it to brick-and-mortar stores. That has turned out to be a complete failure because ask anyone who goes to Amazon physical stores. Did you even know Amazon has physical stores? Most people probably don't know that. Sears, 100 years ago, got into brick-and-mortar stores more successfully than Amazon. A mail-order catalog retailer, two of them actually, 100 years ago, got into brick-and-mortar more successfully. Sears understood how to get into physical retail better than Amazon did 100 years before it. That's honestly kind of embarrassing. Now, there are parallels between Kmart and Amazon's stories, and I know at first glance it may seem crazy because one was a brick-and-mortar store and the other was an online store. But there are parallels. For one thing, both Kmart and Amazon launched a new type of store in the United States. Kmart, the big box, Amazon, online store. Those were new when they launched. And both of them dominated. They were once the only good choice for a long time. Kmart was the biggest big box store and thus, for a while, the only choice because there wasn't competition around. And Amazon, for a while, was the only choice for e-commerce. Now, yes, you had eBay, which existed, but there was no other mainstream online store like Amazon was for many years. Both Kmart and Amazon, for a while, were the only choice of their store type. And then, both Kmart and Amazon coasted. Kmart more so coasted. Amazon ran out of things to innovate because, again, you can only push innovation so far in one thing before you maximize it. But I'll still say that Amazon coasted because it didn't try to change much. So both Kmart and Amazon started coasting. And Kmart and Amazon started losing out to competition. Now, yes, Amazon is still very much the number one online store. And it's unlikely, as of now at least, they haven't collapsed, and Kmart has collapsed. But as of now, Amazon right now is in the time frame that Kmart was in the 90s, where the cracks are more obvious, people are jumping ship. Now, will Amazon end up like Kmart? Will it soon be completely out of business? Probably not. However, I say Amazon will become just another choice. It won't become the choice. It will be a choice. Because the way I see it now, Walmart is rapidly catching up to Amazon for e-commerce, and you have a whole wave of brick-and-mortar stores trying to fight back. You have Best Buy, who does it very well, Home Depot, who also does it very well, and like I said, all these other big boxes, off-price, warehouse club, department, a bunch of major brick-and-mortar stores are fighting back to try to not lose to Amazon. So Amazon is facing a tsunami of pushback from competition. And while I don't think Amazon is going to completely go under, it won't become the dominant choice, just like Kmart lost its dominant position as the big box store. Amazon will soon become not the online store, just an online store.